trivia, so I can't imagine there's too many questions, but me and Amanda will make up for that. So we shall get started. So thank you for attending today. This session's on the circular economy, which you know because hopefully you're interested in it and have signed up for it for that reason. So we'll just give a brief introduction to the Climate Hub. But yeah, this event's about circular economy, so it won't be too long. So basically the Climate Hub covers the areas of the Northern Isles and North Highlands. It's funded by the Scottish Government for the next 3 years, after we've just completed our Pathfinder phase at the end of March. It's one of 2 pilot hubs, the other one being NESCAN, which is North East Scotland Climate Action Network, which is operated by Aberdeen Climate Action. So yeah, at the moment there's only 2, but the Scottish Government's looking to install more regional hubs throughout Scotland. And the aim for the hubs is to be community owned and led, and it's to facilitate embedding climate action throughout the region. So to help embed climate action in the region, we're looking to support, collaborate, educate and celebrate. So with regards to support, we're happy to help in any way that we can, basically, whether it's just reducing the bureaucracy around running a group or applying for funding or like doing business planning or anything like that. Also helping with the design, development and delivery of projects, and also even if it's just to act as a soundboard to bounce ideas off of. With collaboration, we're happy to help groups connect with each other and kind of share best practice and ideas. We're also happy to help groups feed into networks that currently exist, or if no networks exist, then hopefully be able to facilitate new networks existing. And we're also happy to facilitate community learning exchanges so that groups can visit one another. We're also working on education. So my colleague Amanda is working on resources online that can help groups reduce bureaucracy, just make the process of running a group a little bit easier. We're working on workshops as well to do things such as installing like net zero strategy or environmental policies into organizations. And we're also developing our own carbon literacy training to just kind of spread the message about climate change and help get groups interested and involved and engaged with it. And yeah, we're happy to celebrate groups' achievements as well. So climate action and community needs. The aim of the hub is to support climate action, but in doing so, it also helps address community needs. A lot of groups kind of have projects that they install to address community needs and don't often realize that what they're doing is a climate action project. And it's also likely, what have I done? It's also likely that we've seen it so far that funding will start asking for climate action to be embedded into successful applications. So it's likely that more groups will require support to kind of even just have ideas of how to embed climate action, but also to run a successful and sustainable project as well. So circular economy projects are no different from this, but I'll speak about the benefits of doing that in 2 slides time. So what is a circular economy, which is probably the main focus of this event. So a linear economy is where traditionally products are bought, used and discarded. A recycling economy is when products are bought, used, the resources are used again, but it inevitably ends up as waste. Whereas a circular economy is one that keeps reusing the resources in products so that they can be used time and time again. And this acts to reduce waste and also decrease production. And yeah, some of our guest speakers will probably be able to tell you more about the circular economy later on. So what are the benefits? A circular economy project kind of addresses lots of community needs. Some examples are here on this slide. So reduce waste, knowledge and skills, increased togetherness and inclusivity. And there's also ecological benefits and less visual pollution. Also employment, connectivity and equality. And they're just some examples of kind of community needs or benefits that are granted from installing a circular economy project. So I'll just move on to the guest speakers. That was my whirlwind tour. So the first speaker that we're going to be hearing from this evening is Miriam from Zeroway Scotland. I think she has her own slides, so I'll stop sharing if that is the case. It is the case.
Yes. Excellent. Right. First test of technology then. Oh. Yeah. Are you seeing my slides?
Yeah.
Better. Fantastic. Right. Hi there. Sorry about that. So I'm Miriam from Zeroway Scotland, as mentioned, and I was just going to mention a little bit about who we are and kind of what support we can give you guys. So we are funded by the Scottish Government and European Regional Development Fund to really look at resources across Scotland and make better use of what we have and reduce waste. And yeah, this is based on around research. We do a lot of research and produce reports looking at the sort of carbon impact in Scotland. And we did a big campaign last year where we published this data during COP26, saying that 82% of our carbon footprint in Scotland comes from consumption. So this is from all the goods, materials, and services that we produce, use, and in the case of products, often throw out after just one use. So that kind of leads into why the circular economy is so important, really, that we need to be working to try and make better use of these good materials and services and make sure that we don't have things that are being thrown out after just one use. So like Jonny's slide showed, you know, we want things to be used again and again and again and not end up in the bin. We also get the feedback all the time, we're just a small country, Scotland can't do very much. But our research suggests that actually about half of our emissions are produced overseas. So we can't say it's China's fault, because actually we're buying loads of our stuff from China. You know, we're buying our stuff from all around the world. So we really can't just look at what we're doing here. We also produced a new report in about last month around sort of the carbon impacts in Scotland, looking at imports and exports, and that goes into that in a lot more detail. And that's on the Zeroway Scotland website if anyone wants to look at that. But you know, really makes you appreciate how reliant we are on a lot of things from overseas. So I'm not going to go into great detail on the circular economy. You know, we've got plenty more stuff online, and I think Jonny gave a nice overview of it there. But we do have a lot more resources. But in terms of the support that we can give to you guys running community projects, my role really is to support you in any way I can. So we have materials, resources, training, and one-to-one support where needed. So if you're thinking, I want to do something around the circular economy, I want to encourage reuse and reduce waste in my community, then I can talk to you and maybe signpost you to ideas or other organizations that are doing similar things that you may want to sort of check them out and learn from them. I do give a lot of talks as well. So happy to give talks to your community or do a sort of train the trainer type thing. You know, we're not precious about our materials, so I can go through the slides with you, give you the slides so you can then deliver them in your community. But these are the sort of topics that I tend to cover, although I'm open to suggestions of anything new. But talking about sort of reuse and repair, food waste reduction, textiles is a big topic. Ditching disposables, so getting rid of all the single-use stuff like coffee cups and the packaging in supermarkets. Obviously the circular economy, which is what this event is all about, but also ad hoc campaigns we've done, such as Trial Period, which was all about reusable menstrual products. So we've got a lot of stuff online, lots of downloadable resources. So things like how-to guides. We've got our repair and share guide, which was a load of case studies about different repair and share products. It's quite old now. So I know at least one of the organizations there isn't trading anymore, unfortunately, but it might just give you a bit of inspiration. There's loads of love, food, hate, waste resources. So like this one at the bottom left-hand side, which is a toolkit if you're thinking about doing cooking classes with a slant on saving food. And then there's lots of resources for local authorities, like this love, food, hate, waste and home composting toolkit, which I say they're aimed at local authorities, but available for anybody to use and pick whatever is useful to you. We do have some printed leaflets. Obviously, as Zeroway Scotland, this is something we're sort of phasing out, not doing so much anymore, because it does open you up to criticism when you start giving out loads of tosh. But we do have some to use up. So if you want any of those, please do let me know. And we'll be more than happy to send you a watch of them. We've also, if you're doing anything with schools, we've got some schools resources around food waste recycling and litter. And I mentioned ad hoc campaigns, I mentioned Trial Period, but we've also got ones around reusable face masks, litter and fly tipping, and responsible consumption. And whenever we run these campaigns, there tends to be a toolkit with downloadable social media images and things like that. So these are all on our partners site, and you can use them at any stage. So, you know, I still walk into public toilets every now and again and see some of the Trial Period posters and things up, and that was a campaign we ran over 2 years ago. So, you know, these things are there for you to use as you wish. We also, at the moment, have something called the Energy Efficiency Business Support Service, which is for businesses, but also applicable to, you know, community groups. This is moving over to the Energy Savings Trust in April. So I'm not sure exactly what's going to happen with all these resources. So if you want to have a look at it, get in there quick. But there are posters on there. There's a lot of toolkits, lots of sort of how-to guides for how to do various energy audits and waste audits around your premises if you have them, or if you're working with businesses in your area, you can direct them to those. There's also the Green Champions training, which is a free online course that you can dip in and out of. You can pick which modules you want to do. And is accredited, and you can get certificates if you want to. So that's all available on there. And as I mentioned, there's lots of reports on various things online, which you're welcome to have a look at. I mentioned that last month we produced a report about the carbon metrics for Scotland. And if you're thinking of doing anything around textiles, textiles came out as a really big thing in there. The research found that although textiles only make up 4% of Scotland's waste by weight, but they make up 32% of our carbon impact. So that's when you start to look at the whole life cycle of textiles, from, you know, how the cotton is grown, the water that goes into it, transportation, packaging, our washing and drying of those clothes, and the disposing. So, you know, textiles is a big thing that hopefully we're going to focus on a lot more next year. But as I say, that report is there if it's of use to any of you. We also run a number of weeks of action. So this week is actually our Pass It On week. Unfortunately, with being in a global pandemic, the phrase pass it on is probably not appropriate at the moment. So it's been very low key this year, and we've called it Reuse Stuff Week. And also normally we try and encourage community groups to do events during the week. But again, I know a lot of groups aren't doing a lot of face-to-face events at the moment. So it's just been a very low-key digital campaign. But hopefully 2023 we'll see it back and rocking, and lots going on. But we have Recycle Week in September. and European Week for Waste Reduction in November. And the theme this year is going to be textiles. So that gives you 8 months notice if you want to do some events in that week around textiles. That would be absolutely fantastic, and there'll be more information coming soon. Also, just need to mention that there is a single-use plastics ban coming up on the 1st of June. So if you are working with organisations in your area, especially hospitality businesses, there's going to be this ban on certain single-use items, which is going to affect them. There is, again, a toolkit online, and there is a webinar next Thursday if anyone's interested in finding out more about that. That's mentioned on our social media, and you can go along to that and find out more. So that's a real whistle-stop tour. There's a few websites I've sort of mentioned there. So our corporate site, I've also mentioned a specific area on that, our circular economy side, so you can have a look at that. And again, if you're working with businesses in your area, there is a lot of support on there for circular economy work, and there are case studies of what a lot of businesses in Scotland have done, but various other websites there as well that may be of use to you. But that is my 10 minutes, I think. So that is my email address. I'll send the slides to Jonny, so if anybody wants any of those links, you can have them. But thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Miriam. That was great. So if you've got any questions, we'll wait till the end because I've got some questions maybe. But we will just move on to Matt from Circular Communities Scotland. I won't share my screen to show the presentation slide to show Matt's name. So Matt, you can just go straight ahead and share if Amanda
Thank you.
Co-hosting abilities.
Yeah, I think I've been given co-host. So here we go again. We hope it works. Right, hang on. So give me 2 seconds. So while I'm doing this, I'll just introduce myself. I'm Matt Lewis. I work for Circular Communities Scotland, and I always have to get that right now because we changed our name last year from CRNS, and we think this new name is much more reflective of what we do and what we're about. So I'll share that again. How are we doing? Can anyone see that?
That's a success, yeah.
Brilliant.
You can see your slides down the left-hand side as well at the moment.
Yeah. Should just trying to find the button for share it, doing it to presentations are hidden. That's annoying. Does anyone know the shortcut to show presentation?
Yeah, it's just F5.
Thank you so much.
I think.
No, that's not working. Well, that's really annoying. Right, tell you what, let's try again. Apologies for this. Normally, this normally comes on okay. So, right, do that. Try again. Okay, is that better? Again, not quite sure what I've done there.
Yeah, that's doing it.
That's fine. Well, anyway, that's just, sorry, yes. So quick chat for me today around circular economy and Circular Community Scotland. Apologies for that introduction. That wasn't very professional at all. But moving swiftly on to, before we start talking about the waste hierarchy, just wanted to talk about waste, because traditionally that's pretty much what we have all been talking about and how we manage our waste. And the waste hierarchy is a very simple model that we've always used to show all of the different things that we can manage our waste by. You've got landfill and recovery and energy from waste at the bottom, but as you move up through recycling, through repair to reuse and refuse, and actually not using new items, but using items again, you'll see that for us and for many people, that when you go up the waste hierarchy, it becomes a higher priority for us and our members, especially when we're talking in terms of being a more circular economy. So we want all of us, our members, to really be focusing more towards the top of the pyramid. Recycling is good, and it will continue for many years, but repair and resources is better, and for us a much more important priority as we look forward to a more circular economy. So connecting the waste hierarchy with the circular economy, and thank you, Jonny, for already. I really like your circular economy, linear economy slide. I really like that. Kaz is a bit more formal, but it's essentially the same information, so I won't dwell on it. Comparing a linear economy to what we want a circular economy to be like, rather than take, make, use and lose materials, or with a little bit of recycling. We want the system to actually aim to eliminate waste and promote the sustainable use of the resources. And the way we do that is by trying to keep them in use for as long a time as possible. And that is done, again, through a variety of different ways. It starts in the design, the research and design phases of products, then it continues into the actual production, the making of them. Are there repair systems for them? And then actually how do we consume them? Are we ensuring that we consume them for as long as possible? And then if they are repairable, so we can carry on using them, that's brilliant. But then finally, if they are unusable, then recycling does become viable and okay. So that's what we're aiming for, a more circular route for materials and scarce resources. And again, a couple of reasons for that is resource scarcity and climate issues, as Jonny mentioned earlier. So what do our members do? Well, this is where it really connects well to our members up and down Scotland. Do some form of circular economy work, whether that's reuse, repair, recycling, across a number of different material streams. And this is just some data from last year's member survey, which gives you an idea, a flavour of some of those products, projects and materials. And you'll see that the most common project or material stream that our members work on right now is furniture reuse. And you can put white goods and electronic items in with that as well. And that is the more mainstream reuse project or reuse services that our members across Scotland would do. But you'll also see there's other products like bike reuse projects. There are a number of community textile and clothes projects as well. Starter packs. There's still a few recycling services. If we were having this conversation 10 years ago, more of our members would be doing recycling than reuse, but they're all moving up the waste hierarchy pyramid as local authorities and private sector pretty much do the main bulk of recycling services, and that will continue. Food waste and community fridges is another angle of the circular economy, but I just wanted to flag up the tool libraries and repair cafes and upcycling, which are definitely an emerging type of project, and I'm going to come back to those in a minute. So across our members, what's the actual impact? Again, this is data from last year's member survey. Interestingly, last year, I should have said this in the introduction, but the IT was throwing me a bit. Apologies for that. The membership at last September, when we did our last survey, was standing at 143 members across Scotland, and those are community groups, charities or social enterprises. They're all not-for-profit. We had 143 members across 32 local authorities. Right now, in March 2022, we have over 200 members, which is an incredible growth in less than a year. And I think it demonstrates just how important the circular economy is to a number of third sector and community projects. So just by measuring last year's survey, 143 members, we can measure turnover, we can measure the people that work in the organisation or volunteer for the organisation, and we can also measure their actual impact in terms of the tonnage of materials they deal with. And those are really significant figures. When you put all those figures together collectively, they really do tell a powerful story and emphasise to us just how valuable and important the role of the third sector and the social enterprise sector is and will be over the coming years to help deliver a more circular economy in Scotland. There's a carbon saving figure of 80, we estimate approximately 84,000 tonnes of CO2 equivalent saved. I will admit that is quite a rough calculation. We work with our colleagues at Zeroway Scotland to turn tonnage figures into carbon saving figures. We're getting better at it, but I'd say that is more of a number to open up a discussion rather than saying that's an exact figure. But you can maybe think about this in your own projects, and maybe Amanda and Jonny, this is work for you guys as the network and the hub does its work to actually try and more accurately measure carbon savings in individual projects across the Northeast Highlands and Islands. That would be really interesting to do. So I just wanted to mention some new projects and some circular economy news that I think we all need to be aware of. The first two are projects that we've started ourselves this year, and we're really, really quite excited about them. First one I mentioned is the Share and Repair Network. Miriam mentioned Share and Repair, and we're delighted to add to the Share and Repair output in Scotland. We have just recruited a member of staff whose sole job it will be to support and promote sharing and repair projects across Scotland. That's supporting existing projects and to potentially identify new and emerging projects too. That's really exciting. We're really, really excited about that. Emma's only been in post a couple of weeks, but we're expecting some great things. And I can put all this information to Jonny after tonight, or I can put some links in the chat after I finish speaking about some of these projects. Our second project is following on from the Share and Repair Network. We are also going to do a similar project with bikes and bike projects. And we're currently recruiting for a bike reuse development officer, who their role will be to support and promote existing bike reuse projects across Scotland and to identify any opportunities for new or emerging ones. So that's really exciting. That shows that the work the third sector is doing is widening and looking at doing more things across the circular economy, which is great. The third bit of news, which I'm going to end on, is last week the Scottish Government announced that they will be going forward in May with a consultation on the circular economy bill. Now, this was supposed to be presented to Parliament a couple of years ago, but something called COVID got in the way and it got pulled. So we're really excited about this. This is big. I think it's big for us. It's big for our members. It's big for anyone interested in climate and the environment, because I don't think we get a chance very often to actually participate in legislation of this nature, to actually say what we want to see happen in a more circular Scotland. One thing that Lorna Slater, the minister, mentioned last week when she announced the bill was coming was they are looking at a ban on the disposal of returned items and goods by companies. Some of you might remember Amazon last year got into a lot of trouble in the news because they were disposing of returned goods in their thousands, just because that was economic for them to do that. That has to stop. If we want a circular economy, we cannot allow perfectly reasonable and workable goods to be disposed of. They need to be passed on to organisations or people that will use them. And we're sort of hoping that's going to be one of the angles of the bill. There are going to be lots more. It should all, we hope, all be about promoting reuse and repair, again, at the very top of the hierarchy. We want to see the bill promoting reuse as a priority at all council recycling centres. When you enter a council HWRC, the first thing you should see is an opportunity to donate for reuse. It's a no-brainer, but it doesn't happen across all recycling centres. And the other thing which we are really going to be pushing for, and we hope others will too, is to introduce an ambitious reuse target for Scotland, which would go alongside the current recycling targets. And again, if we start having reuse targets, then that is going to be an encouragement for our sector, for councils and the private sector to really push on with reuse and repair activities. I think that's my 10 minutes. Apologies for the IT hiccup at the beginning. I'll put all my details in the chat when I stop sharing my screen, but thanks for listening.
Cheers, Matt. That was really good. It was particularly interesting to see the member network activities and the contribution that they make as well. So I will just introduce Ollie from Transition North Ronaldsay, if he's ready. And do you have slides this time, Ollie, or do you want me to just put a little holding slide up?
Holding slide would be great, Jonny. Yeah,
okay. Okay, can you see that okay?
Great, thanks, Jonny. Yeah, good stuff. So yeah, I'm one of 5 directors of our small community interest company on North Ronaldsay. And I'm going to talk mostly about our plastic recycling project. But the inspiration for circular economy for me kind of started with permaculture, which I'm sure Sharon will know a lot more about than I do. And something we've started, inspired by a good friend of mine called Dan, is a compost toilet, which keeps the poop in the loop, and is something we can do every day. Well, that just is like in our household, which helps remind us of how useful things that we previously wasted can be. So that's a nice thing that we do, which took a while to get used to. I think a lot of these things do. It's kind of like mindset shift. Yeah, so the plastic is a real issue on the island. It's got a big surface area to volume sort of ratio. So I think it's about 13 miles of coastline. And there is a really good history of repair and reuse just because of the resource scarcity, like the guys mentioned, but also quite a legacy of dumping in sort of little nooks and crannies. We discovered these when we started litter picking every Sunday last year. So we collected about a ton of rubbish. I don't have the exact figures, but in the first year we had about 7 volunteers, between 7 and 10 every Sunday, which is really good. We're sadly not supported by the local council with their plastic recycling. They do it on mainland Orkney, but not on the North Isles. We can recycle tin or metal tins and glass and cardboard, but not plastic. And I think it was probably the lack of this provision which led to the conception of this idea, which was inspired by Plastic at Bay. Jonny mentioned I'll talk tomorrow. They've been really helpful. That link's been great for us. Yeah, really inspired to turn some of the waste into a resource for us. We're probably lucky in the sense that the council doesn't take that plastic stream. They really struggle with just creating, well, not really struggle, I'll let them talk about it more, but they struggle with how hard recycling the ocean waste plastic can be. I think initially we're going to start off with the domestic stream, and then as we get better with manufacturing, improve our sort of technical capability, we can move into the more hardcore stuff like the fish grates and the buoys and stuff that they're dealing with. But they've got a great setup. Really sort of big fans of their work. We got our funding from the Calor Gas Community Crowdfunder, which was really a great. Well, I'd done quite a few funding applications before, just kind of like a pen and paper writing expedition, and the crowdfunding was something I was quite nervous about, but it's a great way to raise awareness in the local and sort of regional community. We've got loads of support from wider Orkney, lots of interest from other islands, which is great, and a really good foundation for the project. So we raised just under 10,000 from that with the match funding, which went towards the shredder and an injection machine, which we're getting to grips with at the moment. We've got an application in with Islands and Islands Environmental Foundation for a plastic warden, so similar to what Plastic App did, with a few tweaks, hopefully, which will strengthen the application. We just feel that a full-time role is necessary to maximize the potential of the project, I guess, with other stuff that we have going on. Yeah, so I think our biggest achievement so far was the crowdfunder, getting the machinery to our remote island. We gave a variety of rewards for the people who donated, and one of those was a great doormat made out of fishing rope. There's a Mark, and I forget his second name, but his company name is Afraid Not, with KNOT, which is just great. He came over and did a workshop for us and turned 30 meters of ragged fishing rope into really exquisite doormats. He did this big piece. He's got, I think it weighs about 15 kilograms outside his back door. And he does lots of different designs and really wonderful stuff that he does. We sent that out to our donators, which was really appreciated. And we're going to start making coasters and phone cases over the summer, hopefully. Yeah, the community garden has it's definitely strong circular economy links, but not quite as well developed at the moment as the plastic recycling project. In the future, we're also really interested in the idea of a tool library. I think we moved out of a rental house and we had to hire a carpet cleaner for a whole week because we only had one ferry a week, and we had to like send it back to mainland. And well, another couple we know, they actually just bought it because it was cheaper for them to buy. Because if the ferry doesn't come because of the weather, you have to hire it for like 2 weeks, and then it's just more than an actual carpet cleaner. So something like that with various tools, especially for young crofters. I think you can't put up the upfront costs of tools, but are interested in learning how to build and make things. Also, just to be able to learn from the older folk on the island who have great skills, passing that on. So yeah, I suppose those are our aims going forwards. And it's been great hearing from Miriam and Matt. I'm certainly really interested in the work they're doing. Always glad to speak at these events. Yeah, it's a really good hub. So thanks, Jonny. Yeah.
Thank you very much. So Plastic at Bay were going to speak as well, but they were unable to make it this evening, but can make it tomorrow. So I'll just hopefully play a video from them. But you'll have to tell me whether or not the sound works or whether the video works. But we'll give it a go. It's only, I think, 4 minutes long. Can you hear the sea?
Yeah, it's working, Jonny.
Yeah.
So we're Plastic at Bay. We're a community interest company based in Durness and the very northwest tip of the Scottish Highlands. We started off as a beach cleaning group, but then we just picked up so much plastic and we're putting it into landfill that we very quickly wanted to come up with solutions for that. So to deal with that, then we decided to make kind of low tech plastic recycling machines, and that's what we're doing at the moment in our lab.
So very simply, there is a lot of plastic washing up here, and it needs to be cleaned. And volunteers and the fact that we're in a really remote and the operations of cleanup can be quite complicated. You know, clearly the plastic goes much faster than what you can organize clean up with, you know, because if you ask people coming every 3 months, they will come. If you ask them coming every week, they won't. So I've calculated that, for example, Barnley Bay needed to be cleaned at least once a week. And it's actually more about every 4 days, so that plastic doesn't accumulate. So we're trying to reduce or to counterbalance plastic accumulation in the area, in the ecosystem. And the only way at the moment we have is cleaning up. this costs a lot of money. You need equipment, you need to pay people, you need to have the time, you need to do research because there's no point in cleaning everywhere at the same time, you see. So how do you generate money where you have to deal with pollution? And the only thing you can do, because there's no funding available for cleaning, is to recycle, is to create value from waste. That's it. So the plastic lab was to really, the intention was to create value from waste.
Over the years of kind of dealing with plastic pollution, we really want to like emphasize on looking for solutions. And because we pick up the majority of the plastic that we pick up as fishing ropes and nets, we kind of look to see like why was this a problem and where were they coming from. And when we really researched the area and looked into it, we found that there isn't really like any government scheme or any infrastructure within harbours to take old fishing ropes and nets. We recently did a survey with our local harbour, and they, just from the fishermen surveyed, that they dispose of around 40 tonnes of old fishing gear a year, and that just goes to landfill. So the project we're working on at the moment is with UN upgrading our extrusion machine to make fence posts. We want to move into our local harbour, and from there to start recycling the fishing ropes and nets there, and also continue our work beach cleaning and to recycle ocean plastic.
What pushed me to value the waste, because I was like, I am just taking plastic from the ocean and putting it to a hole so that our great-grandson, daughter will dig this to get all the value of it, because these are basically hydrocarbons in a form, in a stored form, to use them and stop also them polluting the environment. So it was just an action of not being part of this system where people think that because it's thrown away and they don't see it, it doesn't exist.
Yeah, so that was just a brief video from Plastic at Bay, which is perhaps just a little bit further along in the journey of plastic recycling than Ollie at Transition or Ronaldsay, but you'll get there. I think we have around 10 minutes left, so I'll just do a very brief page on the funding. So at the Climate Hub, if you're looking into develop your own circular economy project, then we have kind of development and engagement funding available in case you just kind of needed a help along the first steps of the journey. So whether it's to engage with your community about what kind of project it would be, or whether it's something that your community would be interested in supporting, and also with it's available on a first come first served basis. So as it's almost at the end of the financial year, it's probably better waiting until after March 31st to apply for it. And also with the funding, you'll also get help with whatever you need help with from the development officers. So me or Bethany or Amanda. So yeah, I'll just do that quickly. Are there any questions for anyone? Miriam, Matt, or Ollie, or me and Amanda?
Sharon's got one, Jonny.
Oh, go on, Sharon.
I'm trying to make your screen bigger. So I've got lots of questions actually. I got really excited. Love a good evening talk. Do you want them one by one, or like, shall I rattle them off, or shall I wait and then ask one and then wait and see if anyone else has got one? What's the best?
you just ask them, get an answer, and then ask another one. We'll go for quick fire questions.
Cool. Sorry. I'll be good. I was wondering about planned obsolescence. Have you ever seen the story of stuff? And like this thing, and I just wondered if you guys think there's enough happening in that place yet, because it's just unbelievable to me about the fact that, you know, your mobile phone breaks after a year and stuff like that. And I've noticed, for me, it's something that needs to be part of the conversation. So I wondered if you've got any of that. I'll ask that.
I don't know who's best placed to answer that one, but I think Matt's talked about the right to repair before, which is kind of been a big thing about trying to stop some of these companies making things so they can't actually be repaired. And there's been a lot of work going on about that. But obviously as well, Zeroway Scotland do a lot of work trying to get businesses to look at circular economy models. So it might be that rather than selling things, they rent things. And if they're renting things, then there's more of an incentive to build it to last, because they don't want to have to repair it or replace it. They want something that is going to last much longer. So a lot of these doing as well, if they're renting things, it means that, you know, if something does break and has to be replaced, the original item can go back to the company and be repurposed, repaired or whatever, and try and keep things in circulation for longer. So there is stuff going on, but yeah, maybe not quite quick enough, and yeah, people are still making things, designing things to fail at the moment. But,
yeah, I completely agree with what Miriam says there. Yeah, completely agree. We are doing some stuff, or some stuff is happening, but not at the level required to actually be a paradigm shift yet for us to change both production and manufacturing patterns, but also consumer patterns. Until repair becomes cheaper to do for the average consumer than going out and buying a new thing, whether that's mobile phone, laptop, hairdryer, whatever, then we're scunnered. So that's why go back to the circular economy bill when it comes to Parliament. If that doesn't have elements of what you've said, Sharon, in it, then it's going to fail. It needs to be pitching high level at exactly what you have said, all the things you've said.
And it's a good point what Matt says about the consumer behaviour, because I think a quote I loved was somebody was saying, I can design a kettle that's going to last for 50 years, but I don't know the customer that wants a kettle that's going to last for 50 years. So we need to attack it from both sides. The products and the businesses need to change, but we also need to change the consumer behaviour.
Thank you, that's fascinating. Yeah.
Just quickly on that, Sharon, I've got a friend who's really into his open source technology. And that's a really, really positive field to look at, but just they empower you with how it's made and how it would be fixed, and share all that information up front, which I think is really, really good.
Good for him. Me too, but that's a different political. I'm going to catch my breath for 30 seconds in case anyone else has a question, and I'll carry on.
Yeah. I'll go for a question. Miriam, you were mentioning that textiles are one of like the main issues, I guess, at the moment with waste with regards to production. Maybe you or Matt might be best to answer this, but do you know of any like example projects that address that community groups could take on board or that could be implemented?
There's some great projects going on, like Revolve Recycle in the south side of Glasgow is one of my favourites, that they have set up swap shops. I know a lot of community groups do swap shops, but these are sort of permanent ones on the high street. They look like a normal shop. They are stunning to look at, and you become a member for free, and you can go in and swap your clothes anytime you like. So I think that's kind of making swapping clothes more accessible and more of a normal thing, and also means that we don't necessarily have to change consumer behavior in quite such a way that, you know, if people like fast fashion, they can still have fast fashion, but it's just that instead of getting new stuff, they're getting reused stuff. So
yeah, and also
favorite one.
And there are others as well which are going down the repair project model, actually working with people to actually help them repair their own clothes by maybe providing a sewing room or classes or online guides to actually repair your clothes as well.
And one of your tool libraries is actually a sewing machine library, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yep. Breaks. Yeah. If you're only going to use the sewing machine once a year, why own one? Why not just borrow it?
Thank you. Sharon, are you Are you wanting to return with with the second question?
Look, I get so excited. Yes, so I was really interested in, like, to me, it feels like I've been gardening and growing for a little while now, and it feels like the government's paying a bit more attention and stepping up and put money into organisations. And when you were talking about like it's gone to 143 to over 200 in like 12 months, I was just interested in the backstory actually of both Zeroway Scotland and Circular Communities, of like how long have they been going, how many staff they employ, and what the trajectory is, and your feeling on like how much support you're getting from a government setting, because it just feels to me like it's exponential, like, you know, that we have to start talking about climate change and mitigation and adaptation, you know. But are you feeling that support? Because that's a huge rise. That's almost half your numbers in a year. So but why is that?
Yeah, to be honest, well, I think a couple of things have really helped that in the last, funnily, bizarrely, having COVID and having lockdown actually got a lot of organisations linking together online, and organisations linking to us, to Zeroway Scotland and to other support networks. And we actually made more contact engagement with a lot of more remote projects that might not have come to real events that we were hosting pre-COVID. So I think that's a huge learning experience for us. So I think some of those groups were already out there, just doing their thing quietly. Some, there's good and bad news about funding. I mean, I think you'll all know that the climate challenge funding was great, but the fact it's stopping is the opposite of great, because a lot of really great, small, local, vibrant projects were short-term funded again. And to be honest, actually, Sharon, that's not probably a question for us today, but actually getting funders and the Scottish Government to think longer term about supporting the community sector and the third sector is another conversation that needs to be had. Not 1 year funding or two, but 3 or 5, just, you know, to really keep them going. New projects are emerging, and one example I would make, actually having Plastic at Bay video, brilliant, because that's a great example of two socially enterprising folk creating a social enterprise kick model and wanting to actually generate product, to trade, to make money. So part of the answer is becoming less dependent on grants and trading more, but that's an easy thing to say and a difficult thing to actually do. But I would say, because of the climate crisis, I'd say more people are genuinely wanting to do stuff in their community, or think about a small social business. So I think, although this is quite scary times, I think there's a lot of people around the place with great ideas and great projects stepping up. And I think it's up to us as a network. It's up to the Climate Hub networks. It's up to Zeroway Scotland and all of the other support organisations to help that happen in our own different ways. But yeah, there's no easy. There's a few threads there, Sharon, that I've maybe gone on off a few tangents. But for us to see more projects happening, that's going to happen for the next couple of years, especially because our new share and repair person, Emma, is discovering more sharing libraries that want to happen and more repair projects that want to happen too. And again, the climate hubs are also helping to discover new projects as well. Sorry, that was a bit of a ramble.
No, I'm really enjoying you. You can carry on. We'll extend the session. But like, don't carry on, but you know what I mean, yeah. Thank you.
I've got a question that kind of jumps on one of those, well, sort of two-part question, really. So if there's any community groups or organisations that are looking, this is probably more for Matt, but Miriam might have some ideas as well, that really want to engage their community in a circular economy project. Have you come across any of your members that have done that initial engagement in a really fun or unusual way to really spark interest? Because I think, you know, there's quite a lot on the go just now. We're trying to get everybody to, you know, to take part in larders, to do circular economy, to do food growing. Has there anything that's really stood out for you that you've gone, do you know what, that was a really good idea, and the community have basically, I don't want to say got behind it straight away because we know how communities work, but that has really just kind of lit up on fire? And then the sort of second part to that, is there any projects or organisations that have come out with a really off the cuff idea that you've gone, that's absolutely brilliant. That's really good.
Oh, can I do the first, answer the second one first, just because it's actually jumped straight to the top of my mind in terms of being innovative and amazing, and also in the Highlands. And I'm going to say it's a zero waste shop on wheels. Ullapool unpacked.
Unpacked, way Evie, yeah.
That's, we need to see more. That's the sort of behaviour that you think, wow, of course that's the answer. You know, we've always delivered stuff on wheels, you know, in remote areas. That, it just makes sense. So maybe just thinking about doing that for repair and share as well, maybe. So that, yeah, so that's a zero waste shop on wheels, Ullapool unpacked again, but that was a journey getting funding for them. But I think they're good to go, aren't they, Miriam? I think the last time
I think Evie was, the only issue she had was one part of the funding that she had got from the Coastal Communities Fund was for the purchase of a brand new van. But with COVID and everything, the purchase of a new van wasn't possible. So when I spoke to her just a few, sorry, cats are going daft, just a few weeks ago, she was looking to get back in touch with them because she'd actually bought a second-hand food van and was looking at revamping that. So I think last I heard, she was still waiting to hear if that money could be used against the old van instead of a brand new one.
Yeah. And very quickly then, the first question about, that's a really difficult question to answer, because I think honestly it takes time for any project or organization to actually engage its people, and its community. I don't, and I'm trying to think of, let's go down to Argyll and let's think of someone like, there's Fine Futures, or an example on Butte, they're based in Ronaldsay, do a range of different projects across the island, but they are an embedded anchor organisation, and they've actually developed over a number of years different strands, food growing. They were doing recycling, they are doing reuse. I think they touched energy as well, but I think, I don't think quick is the way we're thinking about it, Amanda. I think maybe just expect to be in it for the long haul and just bring a few people along at a time and just add, collectively build momentum, if that makes sense. Having said that, the other exciting thing which I actually loved was when you and the trust spoke about your sharing shed in Thurso. I don't think there's many other sharing sheds in Scotland. The Thurso Community Development Trusts. Yeah, I think that's great.
Sharon would be a good place to speak about that one. Sharon's quite involved with the.
Yeah, I mean, just that was not. It's not wacky. It's not. It's a great idea. It's a sharing shed. There's stuff in it. Share it. And the other great thing that, again, it's not innovative, but you're seeing more and more is community fridges, community fridge projects. Doing great work, and again, being very different from food banks and that side of food poverty, but actually more, you know, mainstream. You've got excess food, put it somewhere, someone wants it, and I guess, you know, put something in, take something out, and it becomes a good habit without any stigma attached to it. I might have other ones, Amanda, that I think of after tonight, and I can maybe mention them tomorrow or ping you them.
Yeah, well, that's really appreciated. Thank you.
I was just thinking as well with Ollie was mentioning that he's got at least 7 people on his litter picks. That's at least 10% of the population of North Ronaldsay. So he must be doing something right with the engagement.
Yeah,
that was probably, yeah, that was the most organic starting one, where it just kind of snowballed really nicely. The garden was a bit more gradual. We did the kind of mainstream survey, the questionnaire, and a few like coffee mornings, I think. And the best one we had a public, or like an open design day, and people just dropped in Zucker's courtyard and drew loads of pictures and diagrams and had cake and tea and just chatted for a couple of hours. That was probably the best one. I think on our crowdfunder we might have offered to do some ridiculous, like a 24-hour litter pick in some outrageous costume if we reached a certain target, but it wasn't very professional. It was just a bit off the cuff.
Yeah, on a side note, you mentioned coffee and tea and cake. It's amazing how that seems to make a difference. We went to give a Love Food Hate Waste talk in on Sky in Broadford on a Friday night, and thought, oh, we'll get like 5 people if we're lucky. We had over 50 people turn up, and basically what they did was offer a buffet. That we did the serious bit about reducing food waste, but then they got a local cafe in who did a little cookery demo using some of our Love Food Hate Waste recipes, and then they actually cooked up a load of, again, the Love Food Hate Waste recipes and put on a buffet. And say 50 people in Broadford, that's got to be a huge percentage of the population. But I think never underestimate the power of free food.
Yeah, that's a good message. Sharon, do you have any more questions?
Yeah. I'm making lots of notes. I really like that. I'm going to have an open design day about food in Thursday. That's what I've got out of those 2 bits and nuggets. Thank you. I was really interested in, and maybe it's something I can email you about, Matt. I've just written your email address down, but about the reuse services at local authorities. Like, I feel the same. I used to live in Totnes, and the boys had a something that a skip they put it in, and I have tried to find if there's projects doing it in Highlands and didn't know that there was 12. So I'm just wondering if you can talk a bit more about the process, or if not, I might just email you and start that conversation.
Yeah, it's probably, we could probably spend the next half an hour talking about local authorities and recycling centres, both good and bad. I mean, that's the problem. There's really good practice happening, and there's not so good practice happening, because every local authority can do its own thing with the resources it has, in the location it has. There are some really modern sites that are engaged with third sector organisations, either being on site or being next door. And Murray Wastebusters in Forres is probably one of the best examples, but the more modern one is Stranraer. Also have a furniture project, a brand new building next door to the recycling centre in Stranraer. So if you are going with stuff to the dump, you actually see the reuse centre first. I mean, that's what it's all about, getting people to change that behaviour. But not all sites are geared up to put reuse at the front. Not all, now I'm going to be really careful with my language here, not all local authorities might be thinking about reuse. It's not the first thing they're thinking about right now. But, you know, can they be encouraged with resources and funding for them to do it? And there are recycling funding available for councils. Site staff. So there are some fantastic site staff that help the public to reuse and put it in the right bins. We all know who they are when we go and use our local ones, but that's only some of the staff. Some of the staff are the opposite of that. So there is a lot to do, but the fact it's 32 different local authorities is always going to be a challenge, Sharon, and I think that's why we need to get a reuse rate, a reuse target from Scottish Government to local authorities would force them to think more seriously about designing the best reuse services they could for the recycling centres they have. But happy to, yeah, absolutely. I can give you some more examples by email, Sharon. Happy to do that.
There's also some simple, fairly cheap things they can do, like around signage. We did a project a few years ago where we offered funding to local authorities to improve reuse signage at recycling centres, because a lot of them you go in and the first thing you see is landfill skips. And we're saying, well, no, actually, we want the first thing you see to be the reuse cabins. So it's just about changing all the signage and making that obvious, and also make it obvious that if you put your bike in this reuse thing, what's going to happen to it? Who's going to take it? What are they going to do with it? And just all of this, just to make it a bit more visible.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And the other thing that some projects are able to do, because they have either staff or volunteers doing it, is to go down to the recycling centre for a couple of hours on a Saturday morning and stand by the reuse bays and have a conversation with the folk coming in. But that's a resource. Not everyone can do that. But that is being done in some places where it can be. And some people will refuse point. I've seen it myself. Someone will say, you're just going to go away and take that and sell it. I don't want you to do that and chuck it in the recycling bay. You think just that there is still a mentality there of people going to the dump, and that comes back to educating the public about consumption and how we use stuff. But you're right, signage, facilities, support for local authorities to make their sites better, that's all connected.
Thank you.
Is there one in Thurso, by the way? Is there a Thurso
We've
site?
got a great recycling centre, and the boy lets me climb in and out the skips when no one's watching, so it's fine.
Yeah.
But then they got
Yeah.
cameras put in, and then for like 6 months I wasn't allowed to climb in and out the skips, and then now he's chilled out again. And
I was going to say, maybe you should turn the recording off at this stage. All the health and safety people see this.
Well,
Yeah.
that's good. Yeah, yes, I wouldn't necessarily encourage bin diving, but I am fully aware that it happens.
I have to stop, otherwise I'll get him in more trouble. But yes, I think I'm out of questions. I'll be very quiet. I'm really mindful. I'm sorry, I'm hogging the space. So I'll shut up now. Thanks for your time.
Don't need to apologise, Sharon. Your questions are the more the merrier.
Yeah, I've got one that's maybe more for Miriam. It's something we touched on earlier. I know there is a couple of resources, but in terms of like community groups and organisations and measuring, what they save in terms of their carbon footprint every year, do you have like preferences on which actual, what's the word I'm looking for, calculations to use, or a certain formula? What way would you suggest would be the best way for them to measure that?
Yeah, I mean, it's something we haven't done that much on, I suppose, the community groups measurement. It's more the Climate Challenge Fund team might be worth catching, because they've obviously been doing that for years with lots of community groups that have a lot of experience about that, so they may be the best people to speak to. We do have a carbon metric tool that can be used, but I don't know how easy that would be to use or effective it would be to use for this. I think Matt knows about one specifically for reuse, potentially. But yeah, catch the CPF guys to ask.
Yeah, like I say earlier, I mean, we need to do better at this as well, which is why when I mentioned our carbon estimate figure earlier in our data, I guarantee that's not as accurate as it could be. But one of the challenges actually is individual projects measuring their own tonnage. It can be quite a task as well. If you're doing bicycles or bric-a-brac, or even if you wanted to measure your beach litter, yes, you can weigh it, but actually how accurately can you? Yes, you can see the plastic, but what other stuff is in there? Because for it to be an accurate carbon figure, not only do you need material streams and tonnages as accurately as possible, and that takes time and resource. So we would like to do. All I'm going to say there is we need to work with Zeroway Scotland to get a better and more accurate and simpler methodology in place for all of it, which then you can then impart on your local groups too. It's definitely only work in progress at the moment.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Sharon?
Oh, can I have a question for Ollie?
Yeah, go for it. Well, Ollie can be the judge, but I'd say yeah. I love the fact, Ollie, what you're setting out to do in terms of the beach litter, and we had plastics at bay video as well. And I'm conscious as well that there are a number of disparate beach cleaning projects across Scotland. And I've never actually worked out how can you bring them together? And am I right in thinking that there is a Scottish marine litter strategy, but it's actually not been updated for quite a while?
because I don't think it's for us. I think marine litter is out with our expertise, but there must be some way of bringing all you fantastic marine litter projects together and to support you in some way.
Yeah, definitely. I think you're right. There's a marine litter. Can't mind the name.
I think if I'm right, it's a marine litter strategy, and I think it's 2014. It's what because I just googled it earlier.
Yeah, they do. I think they're donating free litter picking kits. I don't know how much of a hub kind of atmosphere they're hoping to create there. Keep Scotland Beautiful had a bit of energy in that, but not enough. Yeah, you're right. It's actually really, because I think we're all very like-minded with similar issues.
I mean, I can think of at least 2 or 3 projects in Argyll that have, because I used to live in Argyll, and I know there have always been active beach clean projects in Argyll. Some of them are connected to schools, some of them connected to bigger environmental projects, but everyone does their own thing because either they're funded differently or they're just volunteer-led. Because they're not actually, unless you're reporting your figures maybe to Keep Scotland Beautiful, maybe, or the beach survey folk, then why would you? Yeah, who would be responsible for bringing all that amazing data and information together? Yeah,
the beach survey is something we started contributing to, which is good. Even saying that, we've only just started collaborating with the Orcadian, the mainland Orkney litter picks. They're hoping to come out in the summer. And there's actually a couple who helped out with the crowdfunding who dive, and they're coming out to do some diving litter picking with us on the beach. But yeah, I don't know, maybe it's something to do with, maybe everyone feels very passionately about their space, and it's hard to amplify that, to link it together.
That Joan at Plastic at Bay is actually currently looking at making it more of a Highlands-wide project and trying to figure out how she can actually, not franchise, but how she can maybe have different units across the Highlands and everything comes together. So I know certainly in the Highland area, it's something that Joan has started to work towards. So maybe worth picking her brain on that tomorrow, Matt, when she's here. Or is it her hobby? I think tomorrow, is it, Jonny?
It's Julian tomorrow. But
yeah, thanks for that. That's just very interesting.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Yeah, it's definitely, well, they've been really great so far. It's quite a big jump up for us personally, like translating that passion for beach clean and the technical expertise to create something from that. They've been really helpful in that transition. So yeah.
Oh, that reminds me, again, I'm sorry, me and Miriam haven't mentioned this already. Talking of consultations, there is at this moment a live consultation at the Scottish Government around litter and fly tipping. So actually, if you have, as an active beach cleaning organisation, any ideas how to strengthen the litter and fly tipping legislation, of which obviously beach litter is just a part, go and check that out.
I've just seen as well that there's a consultation for an updated marine litter strategy for Scotland.
There you go.
Which I'll put in the chat as well, but I think it closes in 5 days' time. So
see, I'd even spotted that. So there you go. That shows how much I know.
It doesn't cover the whole of Scotland, so that's the only issue. It certainly doesn't do the sort of north and the northwest coast, which is why, again, Joan at Plastic Bay, they've been doing their own research to kind of add into it.
Okay, are there any more questions knocking about? Sharon's giving a shake of the head. I also just thought for any community groups that might watch as well, I was just wanted to point out Zeroway Scotland has quite a good page on ideas of circular economy projects as well. Just if anybody's looking for any kind of ideas for approachable projects that could be implemented, they're out there on Zeroway Scotland's website. So if there's no more questions, I guess we can wrap up for the evening. Thank you very much, Matt, Miriam, and Ollie for speaking tonight, and thank you everybody else for attending. And Sharon, thank you for the questions. So yeah, thank you all very much, and I hope you all have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jonny.